Welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks. Oregon getting the victory over Cal, but it wasn't always pretty. Up next for the Ducks, essentially a non-conference warm-up game. They play against Colorado. The Buffaloes have been struggling. But we'll take a closer look at what the Ducks need to do to improve as they get set for really the stretch run of their schedule. Also, college football playoff rankings will be coming out soon. Do the Ducks have a chance, even if they have that one loss to Georgia to start the season? Let's go ahead and get to our opening drive, brought to you by Les Schwab Tire Centers, where they've been doing the right things since 1952. And let's huddle up with the fellas once again. Anthony Newman, Joey Harrington, and from the Oregonian, Aaron Fentress. And Joey, let's start with you, because Oregon, historically, they don't play great at Cal, and this was a game where the Ducks didn't really look clean for the majority of this matchup against the Cal Bears, but nonetheless, they still go on the road, they dominate another opponent, and roll this win streak to 7. What was your takeaway from the game?
Okay, I got a really good takeaway from this, but I thought you were going to come at me with the college football rankings coming out this week first. Ask me about that real quick. Just ask me a question about it.
College football rankings are coming out. Before we get to the Oregon-Cal game here, your thoughts on the college football rankings?
Okay. Who cares? Okay,
wow.
Good.
All that for who cares.
I agree.
Look, I think we all kind of talked around this possibility last week. In our own way, we all said, hey, for the whole host of reasons, coming off a big win, Cal and Justin Wilcox have always played Oregon really tough on the road, early game, let down, trap. We all said that there was going to be the very likelihood that there was going to be some form of like, hey, call it 17-14 at halftime or 14-10, like a slow start, and then Oregon opened up. And I think that's pretty much exactly what happened, right? This was really the first time, be it because of mistakes they made themselves or schemes against Oregon that really kind of put them, outside. We've eliminated the Georgia game. That really, I don't want to say kind of had them befuddled for a minute, right? When was the last time, it's been a while since we've seen Oregon look, I won't say shaky, but imperfect on offense in that first half. But what was so great, and which is what we talked about, and I think could be a good thing, is that by experiencing those things, it, one, gives Oregon a chance to figure out how to do that, because you got a vicious stretch coming up here at the end of the year, and you're going to have times where you're going to struggle and you're going to have to dig yourself out. But two, I think it reinforces the incredible job that this coaching staff has done, right? Each week we've had something where we said, this is what they need to work on. The following week it's corrected. Whether it's turnovers, finishing drives. They went in at halftime. Actually, they went in before this, they kind of turned it on right before halftime, but went in at halftime, made those necessary adjustments, and came out and looked like the Oregon team that we had seen for the past month and a half. And so, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Again, they weren't perfect, but Bo Nix still had 6 touchdowns and looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Like, this is a positive thing for me when you're looking at what this stretch run is going to be for the Oregon Ducks.
And Anthony, really, for this Oregon team, as Joey said, they had some self-induced errors. They didn't look as polished as they did, but you're still talking about a win on the road against a team that has historically played Oregon difficult. So what does Oregon take away from this as they get set to watch this film and get set for their next game?
Well, Joey's spot on. They struggled, and then they find a way to deal with it. So what we're talking about is adversity, and that's all about life. It's all about football. You go into a football game, you have a plan, and that plan is not working too well, and you're like, uh-oh, what do we do now? And if you're able to adjust that plan and keep moving forward and play the way that you can, it shouldn't be a problem. And it wasn't a problem for Oregon. Yes, they came out kind of little flat. Things didn't work. Uh-oh, what's going on? Well, let's adjust. Let's make some adjustments. Let's play harder. Let's play smarter. And that's the game that you need, because you're going to have those games. You're going to have those issues during games when things are not going right. And how do you correct it? That's adversity. You have to deal with that all the time in football. And I'm glad Oregon had to deal with that, and they came through.
Hey, Fentress, I'm jumping in here real quick. Fentress, what does Mike Tyson say about a plan?
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
And it's true. Aaron, how many times have we seen Oregon teams before that have dealt with this type of adversity on the road? And remember, this is a team that dealt with adversity on the road against Washington State and overcame it. I think it's easy to really judge a team based upon how they handle these moments in a season, right? Every championship team has these kind of hiccups on the road. How do they respond to them? Versus teams when they're just blowing opponents out. So what did you take away from really the character and the heart of this Oregon team after dealing with what they dealt with on the road?
I view this game completely differently. So we said, like, Wilcox is a very good coach, a very good defensive coach. He's played Oregon very well the last few years. Has almost beaten them twice and beat them once. And so I said last week that they're going to come out defensively and they're going to get some things done. And Oregon might start slowly, but that Cal's offense is just horrible. And they're going to put the defense right back on the field. And eventually the athletes are going to take over and Oregon's going to run away with it, which is exactly how it played out. And I don't even believe that it was Oregon playing sloppily. I think Cal is a pretty decent, really well-coached defensive team. They just don't have the athletes, so eventually they're going to break. But we're talking about an Oregon team that put up almost 600 yards of offense. They scored in the 40s. They've yet to score over 50 yet this year. It's not like this is a team that's rattling off 50 and 60 and goes held to 42. They score in the 40s. That's what they do. And they give up points. They've given up 27 to Stanford, 22 to Arizona, 41 to Washington State. So it's not like you could even say the 24 they gave up was unusual for this team. I think this was pretty much an on-par Oregon football game against a team that does not have the athletes to match up. And eventually the dam opened and they ran away with it. And if Nix doesn't throw a couple picks early, which that is the only uncharacteristic thing that happened in this game because he does not throw very many interceptions for his entire career. That's what kept it reasonably close, really. And you got to give the defense some credit for those. So to me, the game was chalk. It was like, it went almost exactly as I figured it would. And Cal's just, until Cal changes the academic requirements and allows them to actually go out and get elite athletes, they're never going to.
But they used to be good, man. They had Marshawn Lynch and Justin Forsett and Deshaun Jackson.
Javid Best, Aaron Rodgers.
Everyone has their moments, but right now they're not able to get talent. Let me tell you a quick story. I took my daughter for I took my daughter for gosh, I can't even say what I'm saying. College visit.
Deep
we went to Oregon. At Oregon,
clearly you didn't go to Cal.
Just listen. At Oregon, they had a video where they promoted the football team. At the Cal visit, which started at the stadium, the student tour guide, she said, well, the one thing we can say about our football team is that we have a football team. Ha, ha, ha. They don't care about football at Cal. And so until they change that mentality, whenever Oregon plays them, their athletes are just going to out-athlete them in the end and usually win.
Isn't that what we just said before, though, Jordan?
I think, again... Oh, go ahead, Joey.
I was going to say, isn't that what we just said, though? Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure
we
said
said
you guys are making it sound like Oregon was sputtering. Oregon didn't look great early and overcame adversity. No, this is who Oregon has been almost all season. They're playing weak teams other than UCLA, and they looked exactly like they look in all those games. They got 600 yards of offense. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, my God, they stumbled.
Well, I'm going to pay attention to what the coach and players said afterwards, and they said they could play a lot better. But we appreciate the 2-minute soliloquy, Aaron, of you telling us how right you were the entire time. So, all right, plenty more to take away from this game when we come back. We're going to take a closer look at Bo Nix when we return because Bo Nix in this stretch run of the last 7 wins has been pretty dang impressive. We'll also let you know what he feels like he can polish up. Plenty more Talkin Ducks when we come back.
Fentress is wrong.
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. It's time for some excellence on the field, presented by Ferguson Wellman. Ferguson Wellman taking a disciplined approach to investing. All right, Bo Nix became just the 4th Oregon quarterback in program history to throw for 3 touchdowns and run for 3 touchdowns in the same game, joining the elite club of one Jeremiah Masoli, Kellen Clemens, and our very own Joey Harrington. Joey, I didn't even realize you could run for touchdowns in your day.
Me either.
When did you do that? When was that?
Easy. Hold on. So what Jeff Tedford did, which was brilliant, is we would run option on the goal line, right? He said, all you got to do is make a decision, right? You don't have to be fast. Just if the DN comes at you, pitch it to Mo Morris. If he goes to Mo Morris, duck your head and jump across the goal line. Hey, it worked. It worked.
Well, Joe, you look at Bo Nix, and a couple things that were uncharacteristic. Some of the picks weren't his fault, right? Hits a receiver in the numbers, he drops it, turns into a pick. I've been on the wrong side of that before, but again, goes on the road, gets the job done. How did you evaluate the quarterback's performance?
I thought he was the piece that solidified the offense. Going back to what I thought I said, and Fentress apparently said, Cal did a very good job defensively at keeping Oregon off balance at the start of the game. And Bo, I'm trying to think. There was a deep ball up that should have been a walk-in touchdown. That was a drop. The interception, like you said, was a ball off the receiver's hands. The second interception was just a Hail Mary. Like you go back and look at these. You look at the game and say, not that it would have gotten away from him, because like Aaron said, Cal just doesn't have the athletes. But what really righted the ship was even when it wasn't perfect, like even when these little things happen that can be, just annoying and derail a football team, Bo Nix was the guy who just stayed steady. And that's the guy that he's been for this team all year long. And we saw it at the end is, by the end of the game, he ends up, you start at the beginning and say, oh man, there's a drop pass for a touchdown or an interception on the goal line, and boy, Oregon's offense isn't rolling. And then all of a sudden you blink, and by the end of the game, Bo's got 6 touchdowns and they have 600 yards. That's the type of quarterback he's been for them, with the exception of that first week against Georgia.
So Aaron, he's won 7 straight games. Ducks have scored 40-plus points in every single game since that loss to Georgia. He just made it to the semifinal list of the Maxwell Award. Are you going to put Bo Nix in the Heisman conversation yet? Or is he still just forgotten after that first loss of the season and hasn't impressed Aaron Fentress enough?
Okay, first of all, last week I said he's the truth. All right, so don't say he hasn't impressed me. All right, so let's not go that far. I think if you're making a long list, I think he's on a long list. I don't think he's...
How long?
Top 10.
5, 10. Okay.
I'm not...
Anthony, I'll give you a chance.
But that's not a bad thing. That's reality.
No, it's not a bad thing.
Nobody can say, here are the top 3 guys. Go, Aaron. I got your back.
He has one... Listen, they have one impressive victory. Okay? And then the team that played that most everyone's going to lose to and look bad against, he looked bad. So if you look at the history of the Heisman, I don't think there are very many Heisman winners. At quarterback, especially, running backs can get some forgiveness, but at quarterback, who lost 49-3 at some point during the season. Now, Eric Crouch won it in 2001, even though he got pasted by Colorado. And we don't want to talk about that because we know that's still a bad thing.
I had your back until that.
Huh?
I had your back until that.
You think Crouch should have won it?
No.
I said Joey should have won.
Quarterback who did get pasted and then still won the Heisman.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I think if you're looking at the true, like if you start breaking down the true guys who have a chance to win it, that's what I'm talking about. Do have a chance to win it? I can't put Nix even close to that list yet. Now, if he beats Washington and Utah, goes to Oregon State and wins, and then takes down USC, and I can't stress how important it is that they get to play USC in the conference title game, because that will look so much grander than beating Utah or beating UCLA again in that game. Because that's just USC is USC, obviously. And if he does that against a Caleb Williams on that stage, then I think you have a guy who's going to New York. But there's still long way to go for that to happen. He has a lot more to prove than beating Cal, Stanford, Washington State, really. I mean, these are teams that they're not even really functioning at a high level. So for him to beat them and put up numbers is not Heisman-esque for me.
I'm jumping in here just to reinforce that, okay, look, by saying a top 10 list doesn't mean that that's a bad thing right now, right? Nobody can say, here's the 4 finalists who are going to New York, because there's an entire month of the season left to play. Is he in the discussion? Absolutely. Is he going to be in that top 10? Absolutely. Will it play itself out over the next month of the season? Just like Aaron said, absolutely. And if those things happen, then absolutely he deserves to be sitting in New York come December, whatever it is, 4th, 12th, 19th.
Well, Anthony, it's absolutely your turn to have the floor here. So you looked at Bo Nix. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks play. You tried to pick off a lot of them back in your heyday there. What do you make about what he's done so far and where he stands as he gets set to take on Colorado? I mean, what does Oregon need from him coming up this next week?
Well, we can talk about the Heisman. We can talk about, the rest of the season. I know this. As a defender, okay, or as a defensive coach, trying to go against Bo Nix is a nightmare. It's a nightmare because he's the type of quarterback that when he's going to scramble, he's not scrambling to run. He's scrambling to throw. And now your DBs have to cover receivers, which are very good receivers on this Oregon squad, for more than 4 seconds. Well, that's impossible. And then if he decides to run, that's a nightmare because the guy can scoot. Now, Joey, what is your longest run in your career? Is it over 20 yards?
I think I had a 2-yard option run once from the, I ran a 2-point conversion in maybe. So 3?
Well, yeah. See, Bo Nix is running 60, 70 yards. It's consistent. And he can outrun everybody. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. So that's what makes it a problem when you're playing defense, when you're trying to cover guys down the field. If you have a very aggressive pass rush, well, now you're going to get too high on Bo Nix, and then he's going to find the lane and take off, and then he can throw the ball. He can throw the ball to some very good receivers. This guy is a problem. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Utah. I don't care if you're USC. Well, they don't have a defense. I don't care if you're Washington. I don't care if you're Oregon State. This quarterback will give you problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, up next is a school that probably shouldn't give Bo Nix any problems, and that'll be Colorado. All right, stick around. Plenty more Talkin Ducks around the corner. We still got to talk about the offense and the defense after their performances at Cal as they get set for the stretch run of the season. What do the Ducks need to see from them? We'll be right back. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for our legendary moment, brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. And how about Patrick Herbert and his first ever career touchdown? Herbert, a fourth-year sophomore, leg injuries had limited him to just 1 game in his first 3 seasons. So obviously continuing to make the Herbert family name. Very proud as well as he finally gets into the end zone for the first time as a Duck. And really, you look at this game here, Aaron, and it was a big day for running backs and tight ends. And when you look at the production Oregon has gotten from the wide receiver position so far throughout the year, you have to be pretty encouraged about the overall depth of the offense. And I think it's answering a lot of questions we had coming into this season.
Yeah, they have weapons all over the place. First, let me just say about Patrick Herbert, I'm still bitter that Mario Cristobal didn't allow Justin Herbert to throw one, I'm not going to swear, pass to Patrick Herbert when they played together.
One ducking pass.
They played Montana and beat Montana by like 90. You couldn't have put Patrick Herbert out there for one play. Even at the combine, I asked Justin about that, and he said, yeah, it was a little disappointing, but, life goes on. Oh, no, it doesn't go on for me. I'm still pissed about that. Anyway, so good for Patrick. As far as all these weapons, look, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm looking at all these guys, the guy I want to try and stop first is the guy who's blown the top off every defense, right? And that's Franklin. And they did a good job against him. But when you're a smart quarterback, you say, okay, they're taking that guy away. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. And Oregon has a smart quarterback. And he's spreading the ball around to the open guys after going through his progressions. And all of those guys are getting open, catching the ball, and then making yards after the catch. It's definitely a well-balanced group. So I wasn't surprised at all at the production.
Yeah, and going back to this, Joey, it's really just the ability for Oregon to be versatile in every single game, right? They're not relying on, Herbert to Mitchell like it was a couple of years ago, and that's all they could do through the air. You have to be impressed with what we're seeing with this Dillingham-led offense and the fact that they're just sharing the wealth so much this season.
I'm going to ask Anthony this question, and I know I'm going to get the answer I'm looking for. Anthony, what is allowing them to get the ball to all of the playmakers?
That big O-line, baby.
Yes, exactly.
That O-line's taking care of business.
That's exactly what it is. Like when you are Bo sitting back there and realize that you're not going to get pressured. And if you do, like Anthony just said, you've got the athletic ability to get outside the pocket and make a play with your arms or your legs. Like this O-line is so pivotal to everything that they are able to do. You've got 3 backs, three ball carriers, Bo included, averaging, 7 yards a carry. You've got a wide receiver who's making big plays. You've got Ferguson over the middle. There is literally nothing you can't do because of the play of the offensive line, and that's what makes them so dangerous, right? If this was a group that couldn't open holes up front, then you're going to have to rely on Bo's arm and Bo's legs to get it downfield. This is not a one-dimensional offensive line. They are truly creating the opportunities that everybody else has, and they need to be given the credit, as well as Bo Nix. He's getting a lot of credit, but let's give it to the big guys up front as well. They are the reason why Franklin, Ferguson, Irving, Bo, like all these guys are having huge years because of those men up front.
Yeah, and Aaron, I think Joey brings up a really good point that, we talk about all the skill position players coming in, and oftentimes we're like, oh yeah, the O-line's returning 4 out of 5 starters and 80% of the snaps, but there have been some silly numbers this year. I'll have to double check, but it's like Oregon is allowing 1 sack for every 300 pass attempts, and the next best team in the country is like half of that for the most part. So to Joey's point, it really feels like this offense is pretty dang good, and I get it. They haven't played some great competition, but fair to say it's one of the most balanced offenses we've seen at Oregon in a long time?
It's on par.
Way to match my enthucim right there,
no, it's,
by the way.
It's on par.
Way to just meet me where I'm at, Aaron. You can give me a strong yes or a strong no.
Well,
I'm trying to pour the juice. You're not even pulling your
listen,
cup up, man. Help me out here. It's week 8, week 9. I need more Fentress.
We've seen some of the greatest offenses in the history of the country come through Oregon with the Blue.
But he didn't ask about the greatest. He said, is this the most balanced?
Most balanced, man.
Okay, right. Okay, so the 2019 team, you had Herbert, and they leaned on the run a lot. I mean, you said, and how many years are we talking? But yeah, fine. It's an
leaned on the run
balanced,
a lot.
It's an incredibly balanced and potent offense. There's no doubt about that. Am I going to compare it to years past necessarily? Definitely better than last year. No doubt about that. Definitely better than 2020. 2019, I don't know. 2018, yes. Okay, yeah, fine.
Cool. It's just one of the best offenses.
It's a solid
in the last
maybe,
5
Jordan.
years. Cool. All right, Anthony, obviously a couple of news and notes here. Let's start with Chase Cota. He gets hurt in the game. He said he's going to be back sooner rather than later. You get kind of a bye week against Colorado. But then also, Seven McGee transferring out of the program. Wasn't in his number, obviously, to be here as a Duck. So you look at those 2 losses. I mean, how much does it impact this team when you look at, again, the depth they've been displaying?
Well, first of all, I always wonder, Aaron, what game do you watch? Do we watch the same game? When Jordan asks you questions, do you hear very good? I get confused. I'm just baffled with your answers sometimes, but I still love you. Here's the thing. There are so many dudes on this football team. If one guy gets hurt or leaves the program, there's another dude that's going to step in. And that's how Oregon is built right now. Sometimes the program doesn't fit for you as a player. And hey, no one should have an issue with that. You're willing to go. Hey, good luck to you. Thanks for your service, and then you move on. And you find that place where you can play and you'll succeed. With Cota, with Chase, he's going to be healthy. I think he's going to be okay. But there's more receivers. There's a ton of receivers, and that's what I was worried about at the beginning of the season. There's only one football, and you have about 9 receivers that are really good, and then one of those guys, a couple of those guys may decide to leave as well. But there's injuries. The backup is only 1 play away from getting in the game because of injury. So now that Chase Cota is hurt, somebody else needs to step up, and they will step up. And then also when you add the running backs as receivers in this offense, because in the last game, we had 2 running backs had 8 catches together. I mean, you're throwing to the running backs now. You're supposed to hand the ball off to the running back, but you're throwing to the running backs down the sideline for touchdowns. That also helps the receiver core because now you don't have to rely on all those receivers. So everything will be just fine with this offense.
All right. Well, certainly Oregon will love to get Cota back in the lineup sooner rather than later. All right, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the defense and some pressure that was applied down in Cal. Can they continue it for the rest of the season? We'll let you know when we come back on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for some talking numbers, and this is the number we were getting to with this Oregon offensive line. For the 7th time in 8 games, 0 sacks allowed. They lead the nation with just 1 sack allowed this season. And Joey, this is pretty similar to the numbers you experienced under center in Detroit, right? Especially your first season there.
Funny enough, I actually didn't get sacked a whole lot in Detroit. David Carr broke the sack record, but the only reason I didn't get sacked a whole lot is because I threw the ball into the stands. That was the, so instead of like finding a back and checking it down, I was just like, boo!
Yeah,
and
why not?
Let's just say that 1 sack doesn't count. I mean, he tripped. Like, he literally just tripped a half a yard short of the line of scrimmage as he was running it forward. So I still counted as 0 sacks, and I'm sure the big guys up front do too.
Yeah, works for me. And Anthony, on the other side of the ball, you got to love the pressure from the defensive line that we saw against Cal. And as they get set for the meat of their schedule after this Colorado game where you've got Washington, Utah, Oregon State, it really feels like if you're looking at any aspect of this Oregon defense, that defensive line, if they can apply that kind of pressure that resembles that, that's really going to help Oregon down this stretch run.
DJ Johnson is a dude. He's the dude at the defensive line that's creating havoc. He'll line up a little bit of outside linebacker, defensive end. You can move him all over the place. He's not a Kayvon Thibodeau type, but he's getting close. He's dangerous, and you need to know where he's lining up at. And then Noah Sewell is really playing lights out. He's a linebacker, again, doing what he did last year, running sideline to sideline, making plays down the field behind the line of scrimmage. The defense is coming into its own, and I think when you think about this, they have a first-year defensive coordinator. You have a first-year head coach. It takes time to gel and to find what your responsibility is in this defense. And I think at the beginning of the season, Oregon was trying to find that defense, trying to figure out, okay, who's good at what? I think they found that, and these guys are playing well together. You're getting a lot of relentless pursuit to the football. All 11 guys are running to the football, and that's what you need.
So, Aaron, you let us know at the top of the show how you perfectly called everything that was going to happen in this game offensively for Oregon and how you expertly predicted every single play call for Cal. What did you think about the Oregon defense? And then as they really get set for their final 3 games, which are 2 of them are against ranked opponents, what does this defense need to do down the stretch if you feel like they can close this out with an undefeated regular season in the Pac-12?
In all honesty, I can't claim they took a step forward playing against one of the worst offenses in the country. I mean, I think they're good. They've yet to prove that they can really be elite or dominant. I don't think they'll get more tests moving forward. I was more impressed, with the offensive line, which you mentioned at the top of this segment. I can go back to Mariota's last 2 seasons when he was sacked, I think, 33 times over 2 years. And he's one of the more elusive quarterbacks in the history of football. And still defense has got to him 33 times in 2 seasons. And these dudes are only giving up 1. It is by far for me the most mind-blowing number going for this team. But defensively, yeah, I mean, they have potential. Like Newman said, I mean, they're still working things out. For all we know, they'll end with a flourish. But come on, it was Cal's offense. I can't even grade it.
Okay. So, then I'll save Joey any defensive questions and go back here with Nick's. This pseudo sack on the season, what percentage are you giving credit to the offensive line? And then what are you seeing from Bo Nix as a quarterback to make sure that he's avoiding those sacks and taking those sacks, Joey?
Well, I think the majority of it goes to the offensive line, first of all. But then, like Anthony said, when he does get pressured, he has the wherewithal to not only get out of the pocket, but do it in a way that presents a dual threat, right? He's not just scrambling to run and put his head down and just, run as fast as he can away from pressure. He's extending the play. And that's the thing that if you look at what the offensive line has done, right? And in the times when they do break down and he extends the play, what it does is it puts that defense in a difficult position, like Anthony talked about. Do I come up and try and make the play and leave my guy open? Do I keep in cover? And then Bo runs for it. So when he does get protected and he has the time to sit in there, my God, like he sits in there for 2, 3, 4, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, and goes like from 1 to 2 to 3.
I got you. No, you
to
didn't.
7. 2 hands below the waist. No, I can't blitz until you hit 7
missed
Mississippi.
me. I juked you.
Yeah, no, I mean the offensive line is working. Oh, here we go. Symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship. Right? They protect
I'm going to let
Bo.
the journalists review
There you
that
go.
one, Aaron.
When the offensive line does break down, Bo does the things to make them feel good. Therefore, they come back and protect him again even more. Like they work with each other so well. There you go. Does that answer your question?
And Bo gets,
yes, word
Bo
of the
gets rid
day
of the
brought
ball
to you
very
by
quickly, too.
Joey Harrington right there. I love it. All right, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we got to take a closer look at the Pac-12. Things starting to heat up as the conference now finds 3 teams in the top 10. Plenty more Talkin Ducks when we come back. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for What's Cooking, brought to you by Sam's Northwest BBQ, located in Sherwood, just southwest of Portland. Sam's Northwest BBQ, your source for Yoder Smokers barbecue products in the Pacific Northwest, and much more. Well, all of that Pac-12 parody and wildness about Pac-12 After Dark and these exciting finishes pretty much out the window this year. You've got 4 teams in the top 12 with USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Utah that are combined 15-0, Aaron, against the bottom 8 teams in the conference. So these 4 teams, head and shoulders better than everybody else in the conference. What do you make about that? Because this is the first time since 2016 you've had 3 teams in the Pac-12 ranked in the top 10. Do you like it better this way, where you've got 3 or 4 juggernaut teams smash on everybody else? Or do you love that parity where everybody's got 2 losses really at this point in the season?
Well, okay, one of the things that drives me nuts about college football, and I think Joey agrees with me on this, is all the chatter before, too early in the season about who's what and who should be where at the end of the season. And all you ever hear, though, is when a conference has a situation where you have a lot of parity, is that they're cannibalizing each other. And then people nationally view the conference and go, oh, you don't have any powers, your conference stinks, as opposed to, oh, you have a lot of really good teams, it doesn't stink. And that's one of the beauties of the NFL, is that parity rules in the NFL, and you get more balance and it creates better competition. In college football, you want to have some elite teams at the top who look really, really good nationally, and then whomever comes out of that group looks stronger than, as opposed to a bunch of parity. So I think it's great for the conference, because if they're going to get a playoff team in, that team needs to have 3 or 4 really impressive victories, and you get those victories by defeating other teams that have no more than 3 or 2 losses. So I think this is good for the conference.
Let me jump in on that real quick, Jordan, because what people don't to jump on your point, let's use the SEC, right? The SEC, whoever it is, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, this year Tennessee, LSU in the past, those teams are the pinnacle of the conference, right? But what nobody talks about is, what does South Carolina do? What did Mississippi State do? What did Arkansas do? Right? All these teams that literally, Vanderbilt, that literally get rolled over each week by those top 4 or 5 teams. And that's what the SEC has done. Now, in no way am I comparing the SEC to the Pac-12. They are a better conference and have historically been for a long time.
How dare you say that on this program?
Truth is truth, Jordan. Truth is truth. However, this is what the conference needs, right? They need somebody else in that national discussion. They've needed USC to be relevant again. Now you have USC, UCLA, and Utah all relevant. Like you said, 4 of the top 12 teams are from the Pac-12, and that is huge in the eyes of the country.
So, Anthony, you look at this, and, for the most part, I think the biggest question for anybody that's a Duck fan looking at the rest of this schedule, can a 1-loss team get into the college football playoff? If it is Oregon, if you do run the table, I get it. There's a lot of work. I'm not about to say they're going to do this right now. If they were to do this and they beat a USC in the title game, do they have an argument? Or is it Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, whoever? Are there just too many good teams in college football this year that if you have 1 loss, the way that Oregon lost to start this season is going to be too much for them to overcome?
Well, this may be a dud answer, a cop out, I should say. I'm going to put the coach's hat on. I'm going to put the cleats on for being an ex-player, And I'm going to go with coaches say all the time. You control your own destiny. If you have an opportunity.
Come back to me, Jordan. Come back to
Well,
me.
come to
Joey,
me,
yeah,
Joey. Come
okay.
to me and Joey.
Hey.
Show Joey than me.
You control your own destiny. So if you have the opportunity to win out, to take care of business, you can't worry about what everybody else is doing. You can't control what these other teams are doing and who's beating who. As long as you go and beat everybody else, and you have one loss on your record, but you beat everybody else and you win the Pac-12 title game, then you did what you're supposed to do. And then whatever happens, happens. It's hard to say, well, who's going to beat who and who's going to do what and all this stuff and how the national media is going to look at the Pac-12. And, they don't look at us very well. So you just got to control yourself and do what you can do, and that's just win out. So you're controlling your own destiny. That's how
Anthony's
I answer
point
that.
brought to you by Remember the Titans and the Blind Side. Joey, go ahead and give me some meat here. Can Oregon with one loss get in if they win out?
It does what Anthony said make sense? Yes.
It totally makes sense. Yes.
No, it did not.
Great. Yes, it does. It does because you need
I
to control.
didn't.
Shut up over
I
there.
agree.
Okay, look. Only one time in the history of the college football playoff, and that was the year when there were 3 undefeated teams and 3 one-loss conference champions that were all tied for one spot. That's the only time in the history of the college football playoff that a one-loss conference champion, Power 5, has not made it to the playoff. College football in November cannibalizes itself. This will all sort itself out, be a one-loss conference champion. Only one time in the history of this playoff format have a one-loss conference champion been left out. Do your job, like Anthony said. This will work out.
Okay.
Okay.
I've always been of the mind that a one-loss Pac-12 team will get
Yeah.
in. Twice it's happened, and they've gotten in. Oregon and Washington. The difference this time, however, is that I'm looking at it right now. You have 5 undefeated teams that are all big-time, marquee, all-time programs. Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson. The name recognition alone is problematic. Then you have Bama at 1 loss. That's 6. You need 3 of those teams to get 2 losses in order for Oregon to have an argument. That's going to be tough to overcome because any of those teams with 1 loss gets in over Oregon. I don't care if they win their conference or not because of what happened with Oregon. Hold on. Let me finish. Okay. Because of what happened with Oregon and Georgia. So if I'm the committee, I'm sitting there and Michigan's only losses to Ohio State or vice versa, and Bama's only losses to Tennessee, and Georgia has beaten everybody, and that's their only loss. I say, okay, how does Oregon fit in this mix? Oh, Oregon beat up on a bunch of Pac-12 teams we don't respect, and the one team they played that's in this mix, they got hammered 49-3. Oregon's not getting in over a team that has 1 loss out of that group I just mentioned. No way.
We will find out. We will certainly find out. That's what makes it fun, football in November. All right, when we come back, if Oregon does want to find themselves in that conversation, they've got to take care of business against Colorado. Fortunately for the Ducks, they shouldn't pose much of a challenge. We'll take a closer look at the Buffaloes when we come back.
Aaron's wrong.
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber.
I think they've been, at times you can see them playing with some resiliency, some new life, and I think that happens sometimes with change. I think Coach Sanford's done a really good job of trying to rally the troops, and obviously they came up with a big win there against Cal, in a real battle. So you see the tough, you see the fight. I just got done watching some special teams film. I think their field goal blocking unit goes hard every single rep. That's one of the first things that I like to watch as a coach is, okay, how hard do they go on special teams? And they're really well coached on special teams, do a really good job there. But yeah, you definitely see some fight in these guys, and I know the results haven't been what they always wanted, but this team hasn't, mailed it in by any means. They're still working really hard.
Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. That was Dan Lanning as Oregon gets set to take on Colorado. Now, the Buffaloes, listen, no sugarcoating this. They're not very good this year. They've just dealt with some adversity, fired their coach, brought on a new head coach. They've got 1 conference victory this year at home against Cal. Let's start with you, Anthony. How do you define success in this game for Oregon? It's a game that you're going in, you're going to be heavily favored. How do you make sure you go in, take care of business, and look the part while you're down there?
Dan Lanning said it in other interviews. Oregon is playing Oregon. It's that faceless opponent. It's not about the Buffaloes. It's about Oregon and what you can do and what you're supposed to do. And that starts out during the week of practice. So it doesn't matter, if the team is green, okay, if the team is blue, if it's yellow, you just have to go out and play your game. And whatever happens after that, it should be good for Oregon. And that's what Dan's talking about. Coach Lanning's talking about, if we don't make mistakes and we don't beat ourselves, we don't give up explosion plays and do all the things that we shouldn't do, and we know how to play the game, and we have a bunch of dudes on our team, it shouldn't be a problem. It could be a blowout, but it's all about the faceless opponents. You got to go in every week thinking the same. Just because it's a USC or UCLA or Colorado, it doesn't matter. It's all about Oregon.
Come to me next.
Okay, Aaron, let's go to you next.
Okay. First of all, I want to see them break 50. Score 50 points against the Pac-12 team. This is a weak team. This is a team to do it again. And for me also, success is you blow them out early enough so that we see enough of Ty Thompson and he throws a touchdown as well. If they do that, I'll call it a success. And escape any serious injuries, of course.
So basically, your rule is starters should only play the first series of the second half and then be done after that.
Running
that's
clock.
a respectable thing to do, right, Joey? You never pull the starters.
That would be amazing.
You always have the starters play one series in the second half, no matter what the score is,
I'll
right?
give them 10 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go in the third. Ty Thompson should be in. That's success.
I think one series, if you score in the third and it's a if it's a 5-score game at that point, you call it the Dogs. Joey, what do you think it looks like?
I have nothing to add to this conversation.
Because that was money, right, Joey? Wasn't that money?
Well, if you don't have anything to add, I think we do need to give Aaron and Anthony the floor here real quick. Last segment, we'll get to this in the final one, but they need a tune-up before the competition really is their toughest 3-stretch, most likely 4-stretch game of the season here. How do you use this game to tune up, Anthony, as you get set for Washington, Utah, Oregon State, and then potentially a Pac-12 title game?
Well, you want to be respectful, and you say tune-up.
You can't even say it with a straight face, man.
And the Buffaloes are like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Well, okay.
We ain't nobody's tune-up. You look like a Jiffy Lube.
But I think it starts with, you need to work on your technique and your fundamentals. And it doesn't matter who you play. If you want to run the table, and we had the arguments, me and Aaron were arguing back and forth. If you want to run the table, you control your own destiny, you win every football game, then you have to practice that way. You have to practice, hey, we're not playing the Buffaloes. We're playing the Trojans. We're playing Utah. That's how you have to practice. Because if you think about if it's Colorado, oh, well, they're not that good. And then you practice kind of like, kind of half go at it, then you're going to struggle. And then you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? So good football teams don't do that. Championship teams don't do that. Aaron said it. They'll go out there and they'll blow them out of the water. And it should happen that way.
All right. When we come back, we'll give you our score predictions plus the secret bet.
No, we
between
won't.
Aaron
Anthony
and
won't
Anthony.
ever give a score
prediction. I don't condone
prediction.
sports betting, by the way. Just got to say that for all employers. Plenty more. Talkin' Ducks. We'll wrap up shop when we come back. You're watching Talkin' Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back to Talkin' Ducks. Let's check out our solid pick of the week, brought to you by Milan Stoneworks, bringing you the finest stoneworks in the Northwest. Oregon favored by 31.5 on the road against Colorado. Woo!
They haven't.
Taking a look at that, I need a score prediction from each one of you. Please don't get out of here without giving me a score prediction here. Let's start with you, Joey.
100-3.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. At this point, I mean, you want to see the offense go out and just bop, 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 and go up by 5 touchdowns at halftime. Like Aaron said, get out of there after the first series, get out healthy, maybe 77-3.
Okay.
Wow.
Aaron.
So they haven't covered that number this season other than the Eastern Washington games. That's a huge number, so I probably would want to bet Colorado plus that number. But I'm going to say Oregon's going to get it done and dominate this game from start to finish and break 50 for the first time this season against a school not from the Big Sky and go 55-17 and cover that 31.5.
Anthony.
Well, they need to install the high school rules where you have running clock if you're beating a team by 30 at halftime. So I would like to see the running clock because Oregon's going to win by 4 touchdowns easily.
Okay. I got Oregon 49-17. I don't think they quite get to 50 because I think you see the second string players get in there for the second half here. Real quick, we got about a minute left here. Aaron Anthony, this is your side bet wager. Joey and I have nothing to do with this whatsoever. We don't condone gambling whatsoever. We have nothing to do with this. Share with the people what you guys are going to be wagering on here.
No, I just told Aaron, it's a simple bet. I believe that if Oregon runs the table, they're controlling their own destiny. They win every game, and they win the Pac-12 title. They will play in the playoffs.
Okay.
And I challenged Aaron on that.
Okay.
So
and I
and he's just talking. He doesn't. He's confused. He doesn't know what to say.
You gotta let him talk, Anthony. You gotta let him talk.
I said that what would keep them out is if any of those teams I mentioned only had one loss, whether they won their conference or not. If 3 of them have 2 losses of those top 6, then yeah, Oregon can get in.
Put it
I
down.
don't think though, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So I'll take your bet.
We're out of
I'll
time.
take your bet.
We'll
$100.
see if it comes
You got it?
true.
$100.
Thanks again for
100
joining us.
bucks.
Oregon on the road against Colorado. After that, it really starts to heat up for the Ducks. Thanks again
You
for
better
joining
pay
us
me.
for this edition of Talkin' Ducks. See you next week.